So, thank you very much for this opportunity to present our project. I'm really glad that I can be here. And right now, I would like to present more about our MECOC project, which is about strengthening metropolitan cooperation and governance in Central Europe. So, really, we are focusing on metropolitan areas, so not only urban areas, but also these rural areas and hinterland around the core cities. And what MECOC means it's the abbreviation of this strengthened metropolitan cooperation and governance in Central Europe. So that's why we have this MECOC. And as it was mentioned, we try to identify the best tools focusing on this cooperation and governance in Central Europe and apply it in our metropolitan areas. As you can see, the project is almost at the end. We started 3 years ago, and in 1 month it will be done. So it was a really nice journey throughout these 3 years. And we are now really looking forward to the last steps of our project. Now I would like to introduce our project partners. I can see that one of them is right here from Berlin. So at first we as a lead partner, as a Brno, surprisingly, we are the smallest ones. We are lead partner and we have only as the metropolitan area, we have 700,000 inhabitants and other partners have like above 1 million. We have two universities, one from Poland, one from Czech Republic, also Metropolitan Research Institute from Budapest. And then we have three cities from Czechia and Poland, and metropolitan areas from Italy and Germany. We also have as our associated partners European networks, so they can help us to reach the audience in Europe, not only in our metropolitan areas. Now, what was the structure of the project? I think that it's common in European projects that we have these work packages. So first part of the project was mainly focused on analysis. Then the second part was focusing on piloting and testing these best practices. And the third one was focused on strategic and planning aspects. So now I would like to introduce the main project activities, which the first one was the common metropolitan vision, which we are trying to focus on the future ideal state of our metropolitan areas and of all metropolitan areas in Europe. And we are, by this document, trying to enhance our voice at the European level. And by European level, I mean not just European institutions, but also European metropolitan areas. Then we have a practical guide for metropolitan planning, which is more practical output of our project. It is the strategic and methodologic approach. And by this, we want to provide metropolitan areas with the guide on, for example, functioning, governance, or stakeholder engagement. We will finalize this strategy today. This is the last day for the final improvements of our strategy. So from this day, the strategy will be available to all metropolitan areas and all interested people in the world. It will be public. And now I would like to move to concrete best practices. At first, we have collected 76 best practices across 7 metropolitan areas in Europe. You can see them at the map. And for example, we have these best practices from Stuttgart at the slide, which is S-Bahn and also about environment. And from these 76 best practices, we had to choose only a few of them, which were then more studied and tested. So we prioritize them And from best practices, we focused on learning about these eight best practices in 5 study clusters. Then we moved from learning to practical testing. So each metropolitan partner focused on a different topic. These topics can be from food to mobility to participative approach. It's really about the governance and cooperation, not about the thematic areas at the beginning. So it is also the reason why it's so broad that we have on also food and mobility in one project. And when we finished the testing, we moved to preparing really solutions that are transferable to whole Europe. So right now we have as the main outcome of our project 5 solutions focusing on this topic or processes. And right now I would like to introduce in more detail one of them. And I have chosen the food cooperation for metropolitan areas because it's the solution that we are implementing in Brno metropolitan area. So it's the closest one for me and for us, me and our colleagues. So I would like to provide an example of Brno metropolitan area and what we are doing in food cooperation, which is important for the whole metropolitan area, not just the core city. This solution is about the establishment of voluntary cooperation. It's not something really formal, it's rather informal, but we really want to focus with our stakeholders, mainly from public institutions and local action groups, but in less extent from also private sector. And we trying to focus on supporting local production, distribution, and also consumption. And why we are doing this, why we are focusing on food cooperation in Brno? The first reason is that there is a consensus across metropolitan partners that we should include this topic in metropolitan agenda. And I think this is really important that it's not based on the just one department on one political one politician, or how to say it, but it's based on really the consensus among all metropolitan partners in the Brno metropolitan area. They prioritize all of the best practices from the MECOC CE, and really the food was the topic number one. The other reasons are also that we see that food cooperation has positive impacts on the local economy, also environment, because we shorten this supply chains, and also health and well-being of the residents, because usually local production is more healthier than from far away. And we think that also the metropolitan level is the appropriate one, because metropolitan level means that we connect the main city, which is primarily about the consumption. There are people who are using these products, and also it connects with rural areas in the hinterland where the production is mainly based. So it's about the connection of consumers and the production. And I would like to also mention some challenges we were facing and now we are also facing. At the beginning, when we were trying to look more into detail how the food cooperation look in our area, we find out that there is no coordinating body, that there are initiatives in the territory, but they are not coordinated among stakeholders. Then we also find out that Brno was not involved in any initiatives, that this really food cooperation was mainly about rural areas, that also our region, the level above the city level. it's really, they were really, all of them were focusing on the rural areas, on the smaller municipalities. And we were saying that the Brno is the center of consumption, and it should be also involved in these initiatives because it can provide many consumers for the local production. So that were the two initial challenges at the beginning. And right now, what we are facing right now, it's the crucial challenge with involvement of stakeholders. We have many stakeholders really active, but they are mainly from the public institutions or universities, research institutions. But unfortunately, uh, from the private sector, they are not so involved. So the Association of Farmers, they are present in our cooperation, but they are rather passive than active. The another challenge for us right now is the political priority because it's new topic. So it means that not everybody in our territory is really like, okay, this is really important topic because it's new for them and they have other topics already on the table. So we need to provide arguments and good examples why this topic also matters. And the last main challenge right now is appropriate funding because it's connected with this new topic. So we have to find solutions how our local authority can find appropriate funding for all the activities in the food cooperation. So, and now I would like to tell you about more about what we are actually doing and what we have done. So the very first step was the territorial analysis because we were also new in this topic. So as I mentioned, there was no coordinated body. So there was also no uh, complex analysis of the whole territory of the metropolitan area. So at first we did really examine the all aspects of local production in our area. On the right side of my slide, you can see the map of Brno metropolitan area. And it shows that really the agricultural land is mainly in the south. And the Brno metropolitan area is really, in the terms of Czech Republic, one of the ideal ones for the agriculture production. There are not much hills and etc., so we can really produce food mainly in the south. So then, based on the territory analysis, we know how the territory looks like. So, and this analysis also included all the stakeholders, the most important ones. So we invite all of them to one event when we were discussing how we can cooperate together and what are the key topics on what we can cooperate. So you can see that we have a huge event in one of the good examples of farmers, or how to say, of producers. And we were discussing what can be the topics. And the result was that there are 4 topics what we are focusing on. The first one is the core topic, like the main one. It's about information and coordination. So this is really something so important because we have to have these stakeholders at one table and inform all of us about what each one of us is doing. And do not duplicate, for example, activities. We are rather now doing activities together, so I think that's really, really nice. And then we have 3 thematic topics. The first one is about the support for the use of local food in public catering. The second one is support for local food distribution networks, and the last one is focusing on climate change adaptation and organic farming. I must say right now that as Brno, as public authority and the city, we are primarily focusing on this public catering, and our other partners like local action groups, they are focusing on these local food distribution networks. And the climate change adaptation and organic farming, it's like the third topic, which is uh, addressed on the level of all of us, but does not have the primary responsible person for it. So after we agreed on the topics, we continued with the discussing and listening phase, and all these steps uh, led to the establishment of working groups. So, and this is this voluntary cooperation. It is really informal, and we have right now two working groups. One is information and coordination working group, which involves really many stakeholders in the territory. And then we have one this thematic group focusing on public catering, and this includes more people from the sector of school catering, because in Czech Republic, the schools are responsible for providing food for children, so they have their canteens, and they are established by the city and their districts. So this one topic is really one we have big influence on right now, or we can have. And now I would like to tell you more about the outcomes of our food cooperation, because it really started last year. So we are, I think, still a little bit new in the topic, but more experienced than a year ago. So at first we created an action plan for food cooperation with all of our stakeholders. So we have really all activities in one paper, and we are really informed and coordinating among ourselves. We created it in last year, so it is 1 year right now, this action plan, and we updated at the beginning of this year. There are 39 activities of different stakeholders, and they are also divided into several projects. So I think there are like 60 different small projects of each stakeholder, and it's connected to these three topics: public catering, support farmers as these local distribution networks, and then awareness activities are mainly about connecting with this information and coordination. And concrete examples from our side, what we are doing and what we have done as a Brno through the last year. At first, we developed a map app, Farmers from the Region. It's called Farmers from the Region, and it includes really all farmers' interest in being in the map, of course, in the Brno metropolitan area, but also outside of it. And we are really trying to say to our citizens, go to this farm, buy the food from the farmers. You can go to the trip with your family, have a nice weekend at the farmers, and connect them and buy some good local food. And then we also had events for public. We have September as a month of local production. So there were like 5 events for citizens. For example, workshops, but also this farmer market. But this farmer market was really educational, not just for selling food. Then what is really one of the main topics, and is this support for school canteens. At the beginning of the last year, we had a survey among the directors. We really tried to find their opinions on what we can do, what they need. And from this survey, it turned out that they want some list of local farmers. So we've provided them with this list. Then they were also interested in cooking with local products. And then they also need a brochure of best practices. And last thing, what we are trying to do right now, we are really in initial phase, it's that we want to include local products within the framework of caterings at events. It maybe sounds like easy one, but it's not so easy because it's not so much common in Czech Republic that you can include in your conditions that you want local production in your catering. So here you can see the outcomes of our job. You can see this map app farmers from the region. You can see that there are a lot of farmers in the region. On the right side, you can see this best practices brochure, or on the left side, there is also this cooking for public for school canteens. And what is also important, and I think what is also important for you as rural areas, what is the role of rural areas in our food cooperation? We think that really rural areas are essential for food cooperation. We cannot do it without them. One of the reasons is that farmers are located in these rural areas of the main city. We are not able to really properly focus on food cooperation as the city itself. And I would like to highlight one of our partners, or yeah, they are the local action groups, and they are really active in activities focusing on rural areas and food. They really focus on providing public events or support for farmers, and they are really connecting farmers with the consumers in these rural areas. And I think that the cooperation with them is really at the high level. I think it's the closest one among the stakeholders. So we really appreciate that they are so involved in this. So I think that that was my last information about the food cooperation and the MECOC project. And I would like to, before we move to questions, I invite you to follow our LinkedIn. As I mentioned, we will end in 1 month, so you will maybe see a few new posts. And right now I am open to your questions. I think that I will stop sharing my screen so that we can see each other if there are any questions.
Andre, thank you very much for sharing your project activities with us. Great presentation. Prior to this, we talked about narrowing down the best practices to a single topic to really make it as tangible and detailed and hands-on really as possible. And I think this worked really well. It was very interesting to see how far you have come already in this short period of time that you're working on these food cooperatives. If I'm not mistaken, you said that you started in 2025, so last year. So it's quite a bit already that you managed to do in that short period of time. Maybe to start off the discussion, really, my very first question would be, if you think ahead in 5 years' time, what do you think? Where do you think you're at in terms of the food cooperatives? What could you achieve? What could the impact be in a couple of years' time?
Yeah, I think that right now we would like to enhance this topic mainly in the school canteens, because some of them there is also one thing, because as I mentioned, in Czech Republic we have this really strong institutional framework in terms of school canteens, and there is a change coming in the, how to say, the regulatory framework, and we see this opportunity to enhance also this local production, because the canteens will have to change how they cook, what they are cooking, and we think really we would like to enhance this topic in school canteens. Right now, based on the survey, I think 40% are using local production, and we would like to enhance this by several percent points. Then we would also like to start in our house, or how to say it's. I hope that in 5 years we will be able to, at first, the scattering thing at the events, to have local production. I hope that at our last final conference of Mecoxy project there will be a more really a lot of local products, but we know we are in March, and in Czech Republic in March there's not so much things you can like product, or how to say it. And we also have our own canteen in our city hall, so we would like to do the same as with the school canteens in our school canteen, and enhance the local production in our canteen. So I hope that in 5 years it will be at first the topic for all city departments or our political representatives. Many of them are already active, I think. So that's good. Like really 1.5 year ago, it was like really new for them, and right now they are really pushing this topic forward. And I think, yeah, and we would like to really enhance this cooperation also in the territory, because as I mentioned, there are farmers not so involved, so I hope they will be more involved in the next years, and we should continue this good cooperation with this public local public authorities.
Very interesting. Nice work. It's, by the way, it was very interesting to see during your presentation how you first started out by figuring out the different kinds of puzzle pieces. You figured that, well, the consumption happens, of course, in the urban center of the region. And so we have to somehow recombine that and figure out ways of cooperation between the rural areas where the food production happens and the urban center in which the consumption happens, of course. So it was really interesting to see how you figured out ways in which to basically combine these puzzle pieces. But that is enough of me. I would very much like to open up the stage for discussion. Are there any questions for Andre? Two questions. Michael, I think your hand was up first.
Okay. Thank you, Andre. Quite interesting from many perspectives. Actually, we also work a little right now together with our colleagues on Læsø about regenerative tourism, where we also look at local food sourcing as an important aspect of that. But I was thinking, you kind of indicated it at some point that there was this issue with the public tender rules, that they could be a huge barrier for some of this. And I think at least also here in Denmark, we would very often experience that public tender could be a barrier for smaller producers to get into this part of the market, where the big industrialized part of the value chain has much better access to these things. So could you comment a little more on that perspective?
Yeah, so in Czech Republic, the issue with public tenders, it's because it's barrier in terms of there many people are really focusing only on price. So uh, it is usually just only the option when you are looking someone to, and not just only food. When you are finding someone to the tender, it's about the price, and it's changing now in some areas, but not in this food topic. Because, for example, when you want to buy a food as a school canteen, you do not have to have this public tender. You can directly buy food from someone, and it means that there is no push from the high levels. For example, our Ministry of Regional Development, they develop the standards for sustainable tendering, but it's optional. It's like more than recommendations, because they are not able to enforce it because of the law, and they are not the willingness to change the law is not so high for this topic. So they are providing something optional, but it's on the school canteens if they would like to have this tender for food, and if they will have the tender, they can include some recommendations from the ministry, but still it's really hard to include local production, because you are it's some kind of in some lawyers are saying us this is like discrimination for other other farmers outside of the region and outside of the Czech Republic. So it also a lot depends on the opinion of lawyers, and we know it varies.
Thank you.
Emma, I think you're next.
Yeah, first of all, thank you very much for an interesting presentation. And also thank you, Michael, for your first question. That was really interesting topic. We have also looked a lot into that topic in Sotnes about public tendering processes, and also how to have like the right requirements in these procedures when it comes to sustainability aspects and these kind of things. So it was super interesting to hear more about how you work with it in Czech Republic. But you start with some reflections, because you really inspired me a lot with your presentation, because before we are talking a lot about building bridges between urban and rural areas within the project. But in my mind, mostly was about, creating relationships. It was more about people, and these kind of, the social dimension. Also building bridges to innovation actors and these kind of things. But after listening to this, I got like new ideas about also focusing more on resources and economy, like how can we better create bridges, but it could be based on the resources we have or the offers we have in rural areas, and in that way strengthen the place and their resilience, because that gives value back to our businesses, and then they in the end can create new jobs or grow or these kind of things. So that was really interesting. Because we have also worked some with our kitchens here locally and with our businesses, but most of the workshops we have or organize, it's like within the municipality or close to us. So that really, it was really inspiring to turn it around a little bit. It's not only to have connections with innovation actors or between people and people. You can think about the resources and offers. But the question, you said you had like a phase with listening and dialogue and these kind of things. So I'm interested to hear more about like the responses, like when you started having these kind of dialogues with the different actors, like the responses and the atmosphere and these kind of things. And also if you met like some more specific challenges within that topic.
I'm a little bit sorry, but I don't know if it was only me, but you
No,
were
it's not just you. I'm afraid.
there
Emma, your
was bad
connection at
connection.
the end of your statement, your connection broke off a little. So maybe you would like to repeat the last two sentences?
Yes, of course. I'm sorry for that. But no, my question was that, like you said, you have like a phase of more like listening and having a dialogue with these kind of actors. So I'm interested in hearing more about how the response was and like the atmosphere when we started to have this listening phase and dialogue, and also like their response like after you had these kind of workshops, like how were the dialogues and these kind of things, the listening phase.
Yeah, I must say that at the beginning of the start of this cooperation, as I mentioned, there are these local action groups, and there is this high level of cooperation. One of the reason is that we already know them also from other topics and areas of our cooperation. The Brno metropolitan area has like 13 years. It's voluntary cooperation again and based on providing EU funds on metropolitan projects. So throughout these years, we developed a really good connection with local action groups. So that's one of the reasons why the cooperation with them and responses were really positive. They want to cooperate because we already know them. And in terms of other partners, as I mentioned, these farmer associations and private sector, I think that's one of the reasons why they are not so involved right now. It's because it's new for them, and we have to really explain what can be the benefits. But we know that from their perspective, some of the farmers, as we know, so some farmers are telling us that other farmers are not so involved because they do not have time or they are not interested in this topic because they will sell their production wherever. They don't care about local production. They care about that they can sell the production in Poland, in Greece, everywhere. They don't care. So maybe that's one of the points. And also what's one of the point of the Czech Republic, we have a lot of big agriculture companies. We have a really strong, for example, our prime minister. It's one of the, he officially doesn't have, but he has, it's recorded. I hope I will keep my place. He's owning the main agriculture company in the Czech Republic and has a lot of land. So that's also one of the reasons why not a lot of farmers cooperate, because they are big and they don't need us. But the cooperation with the smaller ones, it's really more active. We have smaller farmers in our cooperation. For example, really small farm of just two farmers, they just starting producing, and they are also focusing on tourism. They are not just producing, but they are also inviting people to come to their farm. So they are really nice and active. So it really depends on farmers. And in terms, for example, other group of actors, and the response from them is the school canteens. And I think that the response from school canteens is really nice right now, because as I mentioned, they have to change the way they are cooking. So right now they are really glad that we are listening to them. I think that this approach also helps, because when there is something obligatory on we are focusing on, you have to do this, they are like, no. But when we are asking what we can do, how we can help you, and then we are doing this, they are more like willing to do it. So I think it's also about our approach to our stakeholders, that we really listen.
Mhm.
And then the responses are really positive, not negative. So I would summarize that the cooperation and responses are usually positive from the more public the group is, the more positive the response is, I think.
Very interesting. I think it's a matter of framing, if I understand you correctly, Andre. So it's you try to frame it as an opportunity rather than an obligation, and that's very important in so many regards. Yeah. Okay. Do we have any other questions? I mean, you do still have time to think about your questions, but as a matter of fact, Andre and I, we have also talked about some possible questions prior to this meeting. And Andre, I think you also had one or two questions in your head that you would like to ask. So maybe you could do that now, and maybe we could try to answer these questions.
Yeah, I think that because there are many partners, I think I would like to also ask you how you are cooperating with urban areas, how you approach, if you have cooperation with some cities in your areas, or the medium or small sized ones, or the large ones, or how you are cooperating with urban areas, or in which topics, if there is anything like this.
It's a very good question. And that would also be question that I had. Do we all know if we are part of metropolitan areas, European metropolitan areas, and does it impact our work in any way in terms of stakeholders, ideas, resources? That was a question that I also had prior to this meeting. Do you have any ideas on that? Does this dimension impact the way that you work at all? Michael, you do have your hands up, please.
I can maybe start on this. I can say for our sake, the most obvious link or relation we have to metropolitan areas are the link to academia.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it goes for most of the rural areas, that it's at least where the most obvious possibility of having links to urban areas are through academia. I think the challenge is how to interpret or be the bridge between academia and local rural areas,
Mm-hmm.
because it needs also to make sense for local citizens or producers or businesses of what you do. And actually, it's quite a big part of what we think we do in our hub, is to be that bridge or link between knowledge partners and local businesses and local interest groups. Another aspect that is also quite important is what we just touched a little upon, that like in our case with Skagen, we have a huge fishery port, and that in itself also opens for a lot of links to really huge enterprises, and also internationally. But it's at the same time, it's also then a challenge for the local businesses, because their role in the value chain kind of gets smaller and smaller, because all the big things are happening in other parts of Denmark, or even in other parts of Europe, in Norway or wherever. So there's very often a challenge of finding the role of local stakeholders in some of these very large networks, and how to relate to this more industrial approach to how we approach these things with linkage between rural areas and urban areas. And then secondly, there's the whole discussion about what is urban and semi-urban and so on, because I think most people in our area here would not consider themselves as being rural, but more like semi-urban. So there are many steps on this continuum from rural to urban.
Yeah, that's a good point, and that is also what the philosophy of metropolitan areas are about. I mean, we didn't really talk about the concept of it, but I think most of you will be familiar with it to some extent. It's only very rarely is an area only rural or only urban, and there's a continuum to it, and these areas are working together. They are functionally connected, and that is a very important realization. Julie, you also have your hands up. Is it just me? I'm not hearing anything yet.
Me neither.
Very sorry.
Is it better like this? Or
Yes,
is it like
perfect.
this? Yeah.
Hi, Julie.
Sorry, too many headphones and headsets. Yeah, sorry for being super late. So I missed the presentation, but I tried to have a look at it. But the conversation is really interesting, and I recognize some of the things that we do here in terms of urban and rural, and what you just said, Arne, about the territory not being only rural or urban. I think just the territory that we cover is both very rural, like the CCPL,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
then Saint-Omer, from the ones of you that have seen it, is a more urban area. So the cooperation already works between those two territories. We have like a partnership kind of materialized via a metropolitan pole that is comprised of the CCPL and the Saint-Omer region. So they work together on some subjects like water management or tourism. So like trying to find complementarities on that. And it also rings a bell because I don't think we still have it, but we used to have a partnership with the Lille metropolitan area, which is very big. It's like a few million, at least 1 million inhabitants, and it's only a 1 hour train ride away.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, when it works. So yeah, we used to have we had a partnership contract for a few years. We're trying to work together on mobility, so like to better connect those different areas, because some people work in the Lille metropolitan area, and also to better spread the cultural activities and help access to cultural activities in the urban areas, and also to delocate them in the rural areas from the metropolitan area. And I think it also had something to do with water management, because the rural area around Saint-Omer produces a lot of water that is used in the metropolitan area. So there were a lot of questions about water management, how they limit it in the urban area, so that we are not it is not all sucked up, I guess, by that big metropole. So yeah, we had that as a partnership contract, but I don't think we still have it. So I don't think we still work with them. I think COVID kind of stopped the cooperation because it stopped in 2021. I guess we didn't work on a renewal. But yeah, I think it was really interesting. And in terms of mobility, it allowed us to like work better with the train companies and to have better liaisons and stuff. So yeah, that's what it rang a bell for me.
Interesting. I think there are quite a few topics that are gaining momentum when you think about them as connected to urban areas as well. Julie, you just mentioned mobility, of course. We've heard a lot about resource management and production, but also social and intellectual components. So there are like a lot of things to think about when we are talking about this metropolitan dimension. And as a matter of fact, Andre, you have also been working on quite a few other best practices. Maybe to sum this up a little, could you maybe mention some of the other things that you've been working on as well?
Of course, like there were many practices, and they were within the project, within the MECOXY project, they were really about the connecting stakeholders in the territory. So, for example, in our other Czech metropolitan area, Ostrava, they were focusing on finding solutions to revitalization of housing estates with metropolitan partners in the territory. Then Stuttgart in Germany focused rather on industrial sites in the how to engage stakeholders and try to find solutions how to revitalize them. Then I think what is for me personally nice solution and best practice we have in the project is connected to mobility. Another really important topic for metropolitan areas, maybe one of the main topics that we are dealing with at all metropolitan areas in Europe. And our partners from Poland, from Warsaw, they are trying to really have connected metropolitan mobility system, because right now there are municipalities in the hinterland, more rural ones, that are not so connected to the main city, to Warsaw, but also to other municipalities and smaller cities in the area. And they would like to create an integrated mobility system in the area so that citizens have really access to proper transport systems, and they can reach a lot of other municipalities in cities in the region. So I think that's really some really nice example of how the core city is cooperating with other municipalities in the area, and they are really an example of involving all of them.
Yeah, very interesting. So prior to this meeting, we decided to limit the best practice presentation to just a single example to really be able to provide you with as many details as possible. But this was just to maybe give you an example of how broad this spectrum can really be if you apply this perspective of rural-urban interconnectedness into project activities. The 10 a.m. mark is approaching. That's why I would like to ask one more time if we have any final questions. If not, I would like to maybe set up, like the last time, one little thought exercise for you that you could do after this meeting in order to continue to work a little on this topic. I know we all have very different starting points to this. Some of us are situated on an island. Some of us are more peripheral than others. So I'm quite aware that we all have different starting points, different entry points to this dimension. But still, I think it could be a very interesting thing for us to take a look at if we are part of a European metropolitan area or a similar kind of concept of regional development that emphasizes this connectedness. As a preparation to this meeting, for instance, I've also did some desk research on the metropolitan area Northwest in Germany, for instance. That is the metropolitan area that Vechta is part of. Of course, I knew that I'm part of a metropolitan area, but I didn't know specifically the subject areas on which they are working and what kind of project activities they do. And I decided to really keep in touch and to maybe set up some other format with them in the future to really be able to harness this potential because there's a structure already available who's doing very interesting, very innovative project work. So I do invite you to do the same and really look up if there are similar structures available for your region as well, and look into their best practices, their project activities, and try to think about how your activities might fit into this and if you can profit from this. It's it's a very interesting thing to think about, really. And with this being said, Andre, thank you very much again for being part of this. I think you've offered us a new perspective on so many things. Again, it was really interesting to see how these puzzle pieces of rural and urban areas can be connected by means of specific project activities. So thank you very much again. If there is anything that we can do in the future, please don't hesitate to reach out. And if any of us would like to contact Andre, I'm sure that you're always able to accommodate for these questions, even though your project it's running out in a bit of time. But still, I think it would be a great thing if we could stay in touch in one way or another.
Yeah, I would also like to thank you very much for this opportunity. And of course, even if the RMECOC project is ending, our topics are not ending, and we are continuing our metropolitan cooperation in the future. So we are always open to be in touch with you and provide anything you would like to discuss. So thank you very much. And I hope that also your project will be successful and you will achieve what you want. So thank you very much for this.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.